Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Today on the DCC Guy, I want to talk about optimizing your sound, getting the best sound that you can out of your sound decoders. I mean, we pay a lot of money for these sound decoders, so we want to get the best sound we possibly can. Now, what I want to talk about today, though, is a feature available only in SoundTraxx, Tsunami, and Economy decoders, and that's the Equalizer functions. And these are a great function, and I hope you've been using it. But what I want to do is go over how it works and how you can use it to get the best sound out of your decoders possible. One of the realities of speakers is that a speaker like this one here, which is a high bass speaker, is going to give you much, much better low frequency sound, the bass sounds, than something like this small sugar cube speaker. The sugar cubes just cannot produce that low frequency stuff. And what I'm talking about is when you're getting down below about 300 hertz, okay? You're getting down into the by the time you get down to 200 hertz, this guy is not able to put out any effective amount of sound. Some people have measured it and found that, 300 hertz, yes, you're getting something out. But below that, it starts to drop off very quickly. And so you're wasting your time trying to get any sound in those low frequencies out of these sugar cube speakers. If you really need it, that's where you use these high bass speakers or a larger speaker. And I'll show you more about that in a minute. So what can you do to be able to optimize the sound and increase and get the best sound possible from these little sugar cube speakers and other small speakers that don't have very good output in that low frequency range? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move over to the computer, and I've got some things that I can show you there from SoundTraxx as well as in DecoderPro. And I'll show you how you can use DecoderPro to get the best sound out of your small speakers like this one so that you don't increase distortion and low frequency noise while you're trying to optimize your sound. So let me go ahead and get started. This right here that you're looking at is right out of the SoundTraxx Economy Tsunami Decoder Manual User's Guide. And basically what it shows right here in this diagram is the sound frequencies that, or the range of sound frequencies that you can alter and modify using the equalizer, 7-band equalizer in SoundTraxx Economy and Tsunami 2 decoders. So you can see here, this is the frequency range from 62 hertz to 4 kilohertz. And that's the range over which it's a little expanded because, as you can see, the frequency response extends out, a couple of bands in some cases. So that's one thing you have to be aware of. If you make any modifications to one of these bands, it's going to affect the sound frequency response in the adjacent one to a large degree, and even further out to another one here, as you can see. So to some degree, any modifications you make using this equalizer has to be an iterative process. You have to try it and then make another change, and then do it stepwise, make little changes, and that way you can slowly determine whether or not you're getting better sound out. Now, why is this important? Well, as I mentioned in my opening, with these small speakers, there's a drop off quickly below 300 hertz. So down in this, you're probably getting maybe a little bit of response at 250 hertz, but once you get down to 125 and 62 and below that, what your speaker can produce drops off quite rapidly. And it just kind of sits there and vibrates when it gets these things, when it gets signals in that range, but it can't produce any sound. And what that eventually translates into is noise and interference and with your other frequencies. So basically then, if you can cut off and eliminate any signals coming from your decoder that are going to the speaker down in this lower frequency range, then you can cut out any distortion and any noise that might be occurring due to the speaker trying to produce something that it can't. Okay? I hope that makes straightforward sense. With SoundTraxx, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frequency bands here, and that's their 7-band equalizer. And you can alter. You can, if you look here, you can assign, there are 7 different CVs, one for each of these bands, and you can assign a CV value to those CVs, anywhere from 0 to 255. And what that gives you, if you look here at 128, that gives you 0 decibels, okay? Now what that means is you have this mid-range, which is 0 alterations. Above this range, okay, you're going to increase or boost the output, and below this line, you're going to cut the output. So if you put a value of 0 into the CV for the 62 hertz range, that's going to bring it all the way down to here and effectively cut out any sound signal sent to the speaker by the decoder for that given range or frequency. And the same thing for the others. If you want to try, if you've got a speaker that can handle it, you can go up to 255 and give a 12 decibel boost to that volume. So this, in effect, is sort of like the buttons on your car stereo, where you have one button where you can adjust the boost or the bass output, and you have another where you can change the treble output, the high frequency versus the low frequency. And with those, if you turn it one way, it decreases the amount of bass, and if you crank it up the other way, it increases it. And the same thing for the treble. And that's what you're doing with these CV values like these for the frequency response across this given frequency output from your speaker. Okay? So with a Sugar Cube speaker, since you're probably not getting much below about 250 hertz, it would be better to zero out the frequency signals sent from the decoder to the speaker. And that way you won't get any distortion. It will decrease the distortion. So let's go ahead and take a look at how do you go about doing that. Okay? If we look now at Dakota Pro, and this is a Tsunami 2 diesel pane for the equalizer, and you can see here that for each one of those frequency ranges that I just showed you, you have a slider here. And you can see it tells you that this is CV 226. This one will be 27, 228, 229, 230, 231, and this is 232. So you can go ahead and you can assign a value in here from 0 to 255. Okay? And that will either increase, and you can see it here. I can drop this down to 0, and that's going to cut out the low frequency sounds. I can boost it all the way up to 255, and that could give me up to 12 decibels. I'm going to leave it right here. And that right there at 128 is called the flat, okay, flat control output. And it's flat because it's the same all the way across, and that's what you're going to work from, okay? Now, I said a lot of this can be based on faith. And the reason I said that is if you look here, if you go up to this CV225, it gives you the ability to select flat, micro speaker, small speaker, medium, large, or user adjustable. So you can, if you're using, say, a Sugar Cube speaker or any other speaker that's less than 1 inch, you can click on this. And what that will do is it will automatically activate a set of default values for these 7 CVs. And it will provide what they have determined to be the best set of CV values for the frequency response curves for this given set of frequencies. Now, Unfortunately, you can't see what they are. You would think that once you select this, that it would automatically pop up in here. It doesn't. That's not the way it works. The only way you're going to get anything in here is if you go down and select User Adjustable, and that activates these guys. Then you can use these to adjust the frequency response the way you want it to be. So how do you know what to do? How do you know where to start? Well, let's go back a second to the manual that I was looking at, and we can scroll up a little bit on this page, and guess what? We have a table here that shows you what the respective CV values would be given this particular selection, okay? So for a micro speaker, if you select a micro speaker in that selection box I just showed you in DecoderPro, you will get a value of 0, minus 12 decibels at 62 hertz. You'll get it at 125 hertz. But then when you get out here to 250 hertz, they're going to boost the amount of bass, okay? So they're compensating. They're pushing it up from 128 to 200, and that'll give you 7.12 decibels, okay, of boost in that particular frequency range. If you go to the next one, 500 hertz, a mid-range, they boosted it up to 160. That gives you 3 decibels boost. You go on up to the next one, 1 kilohertz. They've set it at 140, so it's still boosted at 1.5 decibels above the flat values. And even up here at 2 kilohertz, they're at 132, so you're getting a 0.8 decibel increase. And then finally at 4 kilohertz, they've flattened it out, so it's at 0 decibel increase. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. What you can do is, if you want to experiment, you can take and copy this table or look it up in the manual and put that out in front of you, and then go back to the page that I was showing you here in DecoderPro, and you can select User Adjustable, and then you can put in 0 and 0, and let's say you wanted to boost it a little bit more. They had 200. Let's try 230. Okay, so you can do that, and so on. So you can try these various values, write it to your decoder, and see how it sounds. And this is one of those places where programming on the main really is great, because you can sit here, make these changes, send it to your decoder while it's sitting there on the track, and you can instantly hear how that changes the sound frequency response. Okay, does it sound better or worse? And you can try all kinds of different permutations of that. You can keep messing around with these different values. You can boost this one to 150 and so on, and find out how making these changes alters the speaker response. Okay, and if you do that, let's say you've got a particular brand and size of sugar cube speaker that you use a lot, like I do, you can sit down and test it in one locomotive, and then once you've got those values, then you have something that you can immediately plug in future installations that you do, so you don't have to go back and tweak it all over again each time. Okay, but if you're in a hurry and you just want to get things going, you can go ahead and select one of these value sets here. The micro speaker, anything under an inch; the small speaker, 1 to 2 inches; medium speakers, 2 to 4 inches; and the large speakers over 4 inches. Okay, so you can quickly, let me go ahead and do that, go with your micro speaker. And that way you've at least got a default set of values that are optimized based on what the engineers at SoundTraxx have come up with. And so that's a good starting point for your work. Now, something else I want to show you. One of the realities is, let me go back here a second. One of the realities is the way that this system works is, I told you that the equalizer is available in Economy and Tsunami 2. Well, there's a slight difference. The Tsunami 2s, being a premium decoder, have an additional function, and I'll show you that in a minute. They can tweak it a little bit more. But one of the realities is with the economy, you're kind of stuck with just going with these values and these bands. And you can't really zero, I mean, you can zero this one out, but there's a linear interpolation between these. So between here and 0, you're getting a linear interpolation down at these lower frequencies. And I talked with George Bogota, who does a lot of the videos and a lot of the advertising stuff for, and he's also one of their chief tech support guys. But George told me that basically, yeah, you can cut this back quite a bit by zeroing out values at 62 and 125, but you're still going to get a little distortion because the way the algorithm goes about doing this. And it doesn't completely get rid of everything below these values. And so the Tsunami 2s give you a way of correcting for that. So let me show you that real quickly. If we go back to the equalizer here, there's something called a high-pass filter cutoff frequency. Now what that does is, it goes a step further, and it will actually cut off, completely eliminate the output from the decoder below a given frequency. Okay? Now a value of 20 entered into CV224. I know you probably can't see that because the CV value goes off screen, but this is CV224 in Tsunami 2s. What it allows you to do, a value of 20 cuts off everything below 100 hertz. So it's not completely a linear function here. But you can experiment with this. I mean, you can set this for, say, 20 hertz, or for 20, and it will cut off everything, as I said, below 100 hertz in that low frequency range. And this is the default option that, again, as I said, this is a big faith-based operation here. With a value of 20, you're going to cut off everything below 100 hertz, and it eliminates it. Now, it would be nice if you could scoot it up just a little bit and cut everything off below 200 hertz. I don't know what the equation is for calculating that. I guess I need to go back and ask George about that. But at any rate, you can scoot this up just a little bit, maybe say 25, and that might take care of it. But you can easily test this and find out ways of eliminating that low frequency noise when the speaker is trying to create sounds that it physically cannot do. And like I said, this is only available in the Tsunami 2 decoders. But it is a nice feature to have, and it helps, it's better for your decoder if you can do this, because it keeps the decoder from working harder. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with the economies because this is not available. This function here is not available with economies. It's only in the Tsunami 2s. Okay? So the best you can do is zero out something down in this lower frequency range, 62 and 125, and boost something down here. And for the most part, George told me that he typically just uses this value of 20, which gives you that cutoff at 100 hertz. And he has found he uses this a lot he uses sugar cube speakers a lot, and he uses a value of 20 for those. So this value of 20 is not the cutoff value. It's not the frequency where things cut off. It is the CV setting that sets that frequency. And at 20, it's 100 hertz. And as you can see, at 1, it's 20 hertz, and at 255, it's 1,000 hertz. You have to play around with these things and experiment. And it's something that takes a little time, but that's what a hobby is all about. And the learning part of this is just what brings more value for your money to purchasing decoders. And, like I said, as far as I know, SoundTraxx is the only company offering decoders that have this equalizer capability and the Tsunami 2 that has this high pass cutoff frequency capability. So if you have a Tsunami 2 or a Tsunami decoder or an economy decoder, go ahead, get it out, give it a try. If you do this manually, you can use, in the Tsunami 2, CV224 for this high pass cutoff value. You can use CV's 225 here for the micro speaker or for the equalizer control and select it. You can use values for 226 through 232 to adjust the frequency boost or cut here. And as I said, go ahead, dig out your user guide for, and this is both in the Steam and the Diesel user guide. You can download this from their webs, from the SoundTraxx website on their reference page, and look it up. It's, I think, on about page 48, maybe, something of that nature. And they're both there. All these values are here. And so you can easily find out what values to put into 226 through 232 as starting points and to go from there. So I hope this encourages you to go ahead, dig out, try this manually. If you have DecoderPro, you know, you're ahead, a step ahead in the game. Go ahead and give DecoderPro a try at this. Well, I hope that that gives you an idea of how you can use the equalizer function in SoundTraxx decoders to get the best sound out. It's something that very often a lot of people don't know much about. They haven't explored it, and it can get confusing if you're trying to do it manually. And that's where DecoderPro comes in, and it's so important, such an important tool that I can't recommend it enough to you. So, if you've not tried optimizing the sound using the equalizer function, and you have SoundTraxx decoders, go ahead, spend some time playing with your with the sound settings and with the equalizer settings, and see if it doesn't give you better sound right off the bat. Take it easy, have a good week, and the end of the week we're going to be taking a look at how to use various kinds of volt-ohm meters. So this is an old one right here, kind of beat up, but it still works great. And I'll show you how to use these both with DC and DCC operations. So that's coming up on Friday. Take it easy for now. Have a good week. Bye.